I'm doing this one because sometimes when I'm sitting there telling a story of something that happened in history, it's a lot easier and it goes a lot smoother when I just put it on a video for her. So this is for Kunjoy, she's a beautiful soul of a lady that I met online that lives in Bangkok, Thailand, and she was asking me questions about my history growing up when I was a child, and I was beginning to share with her, because I told her one time that I picked my parents. Okay, it's sort of like why I already knew what was going to happen in the future, proves past, Back to the Future, and as above, so below. So it's just like, hey, you're watching the movie, right? Where do you want to jump in at? It's like you want to jump in here, you want to jump in there, right? And so then things happen in a certain particular precise order because it's like you got a copy of the movie in your back pocket that you're already running. Okay, it's like you know the script ahead of time because they're not that hard to figure out. Okay, there's, if you will, it's when you're with the one in Eve, or if you're when you're one, you already know the script they're running. Now this is way beyond quantum probability function or quantum mapping function, actually. Okay, because they use a prediction system, what they call a quantum mapping system, or if you want to think of it as risk perception, which is based on fear, not based on love. When you're running an eternal love vibration, you don't need that, right? Which means you implicitly trust your journey, which means you're not trying to control anything. You're not the director of a play, okay? You're not even running a script, which means you're not even thinking about what you're doing next because everything that you are doing is what love is. That means your battery's always lit, your bulb is always lit. That means you're running essentially the highest state of consciousness because anything that is less than what love is less than what we are in consciousness. So they can't fool us. Okay, so when they're game players, it's just like we don't even have to play the game and they lose by default because otherwise they just get burned up. The universe will figure out a way that it's going to get rid of what doesn't serve the universe of consciousness in the best way, right? Like your mirror. So if you're in the mirror and you're not learning what best serves you in your mirror, at some point in time, you're going to have to learn because otherwise the universe is going to move on without you because it wants to evolve, because it loves the energy it is running on, which is what love is, in its mirror. So at some point in time, that's why there's a difference between knowing what love is and being what love is. Right? That's why everything that I share is I'm just sharing my experience of everything that I'm experiencing while I'm here and putting it up here because of everything that I'm connected to that you become aware of through those neuron connections. So I was sharing with her just to give her a few examples of the precision of this, actually, and I've described it to a few other friends, but it's true. Why would I pick a particular family? Because you want to come in at a particular point in time, because you want to be able to experience everything that you know that you're going to experience in childhood, which is like reverse engineering your future. So in order to be able to do that, you have to be in a place at a particular point in time in order to experience what you already know you're going to experience, like I did when I was, 4, 6 years of age, because it's like I already know what my future is, but I didn't want to experience it because I already realized how much trauma, okay, that I was going to have to experience through everything that's here that experienced trauma, that a polarity integrator is going to attempt to try and cut through all that density, raise the planet up. Because God fell in spirit, fell in a negative space, okay? And so you want to get it up, get it up, get it up, okay? So my primary function was to heal Gaia, Mama. Come on, baby. So everything that I was trying to do was like romancing the stone, but she's not a stone. She's a beautiful spirit. I know the essence of her spirit. Okay, so if you've got a God in you and you've got a God and a goddess in you because you're mated, then it's pretty easy that you can heal a God or a goddess. Because when you're on fire and you have a creative imagination and you're a poet and you're in love with all of creation, okay, and you're on fire with all creation because you got so much love in your heart, the more creative you are and the more creative ways that you can show how much to a girl's heart, a goddess, if you will, how much you love her, then you will live your life that way. And she will experience how you're experiencing who you are in energy, which is what love is. And that will naturally heal a goddess, which is a living spirit with an oversoul. Right? So, scale that up. So in this particular case, what I was sharing with her is, for example, when I think of my father was a U.S. Navy commander, and he went through Rensselaer Polytechnic, considered to be one of the better aeronautical schools, but he was a pilot before World War II broke out, and he used to fly planes, delivering planes actually, for Grumman Aircraft out of Troy, New York, down to Pensacola. Okay, so my dad was already a qualified pilot before the war ever broke out, but he saw the writing on the wall. So he went ahead and joined and enlisted before Pearl Harbor, like about a year before Pearl Harbor. He already had his wings, and so they were testing Jeep carriers at the time. And so he ended up on the Swanee. I took the Swanee out to Operation Torch, which was when General Patton landed American troops in Tunisia to take on Rommel's Nazi Africa Corps, right? My dad got shot down by friendly fire, landed in the drink. A guy that was on a destroyer, which is USS Force, sees a little tiny speck. It's foggy out. And yet was still able to see a little tiny speck bouncing up and down in those waves. Okay? At that precise moment, all he's got to do is turn his binoculars another way. The next thing you know, the wave's taking my dad somewhere else. He's lost at sea. I couldn't get him, especially in the fog. No, he caught it right at that moment. Right at that precise moment, it's the completion of a magnetic circuit. Bang. So they turned the destroyer around, picked my father up. I wouldn't be here today talking to you if that didn't happen. Okay, that's a precision. That's a precision in which an event takes place on the event horizon. So then he gets shipped off to Guadalcanal. Now my dad's at Guadalcanal. He's land-based as U.S. Naval Aviator, right? So he goes up one day with, I think it was 5 other what are known as scout planes, fighter planes, built by Grumman. And they ran into 36 Zeeks, which were built by Mitsubishi. Okay, so that's another numbers game, right? My dad took a 20 millimeter shell through the side of the cockpit, tore open his knee with a shrapnel, right, and made what's called a dead stick landing because he'd lost so much blood when they found him in the cockpit with the propeller still going around. He was completely unconscious, right? How do you do that? Okay, so he recovered from that, and then out of that, he ends up meeting my mother at a Navy ball. And this was just a one-night stand. Now, girls that know about pregnancy and that little short period of time when you're ready to ovulate, right? Imagine that the precision through which it just happened to be at that night, at that time that my dad was there when he met my mother. And they went upstairs into that hotel and got it on, right? What happened? I jumped in. Flash drive, right? Open the gate. I'm ready with my radio antenna. And so, as it turns out, that's how I came to be in 1951. So I picked my family and knew exactly when I was coming in. That's called precision. So how are these events choreographed? Have you ever seen some documentaries on how they make films in Hollywood? Cut and paste holographic inserts and that kind of stuff. So you sort of got to be way ahead of the game with these folks. Like way ahead of the game with these folks. Okay? Because think of it this way. When they can use time travel technology and they can run pocket realities, different universes, and all this kind of stuff, and they think that they can outrun accountability using time travel and technology transfer, right? And that it's what we used to call living on borrowed time. They think that technology and time travel is somehow going to save their butt from having to account for the crimes they commit against the law of one. And I'm the law of one, which is what love is. It goes on forever. Okay, so they know that. So what is the best way to burn off parasitic consciousness? Burn it off. That's called scorched earth. And I heard that word that was mentioned by Patty Broussard. So I knew what that meant. Because I'm having to do that all the time. right? Right? Get rid of all the toxins and the poisons they put in everybody here. The amount of crimes of everything that they did against souls here, that number is so big, I stopped counting a long time ago. Okay? Because you can add it up to every living cellular organism that's ever been on this planet since they arrived in this universe. Right? And began doing what they do. They're predators. And they prey on the young and the innocents. So one of the things I mentioned to her is these are not spiritual warriors. Go look at what the Indians used to do during the 1830s and 1840s. Okay, they're not afraid to go out there in front. As a matter of fact, when I was a firefighter, this was really a standard policy that I learned when I was a recruit. Actually, I wasn't a recruit. I jumped into that because I was supposed to be in that for a whole lot of other reasons. One of which is hydraulics and pumps, vacuum gauges and all the rest of it, and the relationship between molecules of heat and molecules of water and all the rest of it. So there isn't any coincidences in everything that I experienced and the reason that I experienced it for, because it's all connected. But the beauty of all that is that you're not trying to control nothing. You don't have to. You implicitly trust everything that's happening because wherever you're supposed to be is exactly where you're supposed to be at that moment because you're running a love vibration. So you already know why you're in here, right? So the roadmap's essentially built in, right? And you just do whatever comes next, right? Because you're having fun while you're doing it. Even though I've experienced an enormous amount of trauma that requires an enormous amount of transmutation. It's just like, man, right? Okay, so what I was explaining to her in the beauty of all this is that it gives you an idea of just how intelligence, the highest intelligence of the universe actually is, of any universe that's created out of what love is. Right? And that's what makes being what love is so beautiful to experience, because you realize you're experiencing an eternal blessing for eternity. Because that's the kind of relationship that you have, being what love is. Wherever there is love, there's you and me. Right? I used to have an old saying, wherever you find love in living spirit with a soul, you will find us. Because we love the same energy. And that's why as a child, I realized, hey, I'm not supposed to be experiencing anything less than what love is, because where I'm from, that's all we ever experience. And that's called being born in heaven. Yeah, so I know who my parents are. It's the same thing I am. Right? Father, mother, joined as one. That means that when you're born, you realize that both your father and your mother both love you unconditionally, which is called free love, which is free energy, which means they're giving you love energy for free simply because you're there. You're part of that universe, which means you love the all creation. So you're naturally giving love wherever you go in creation, because that's the energy vibration that identifies your soul. Right? But you realize because of what they did here that not everybody experiences that. And that doesn't even get into all the soulless clones, the androids and cyborgs and machines, right? Somebody like Data, right? Data's cool, isn't he? He provides a database, information management, right? So I thought this was sort of a cool, shorter way to be able to express to her just the nature of how love energy works. Wherever it needs to be is wherever it's going to be in order to do what? The most good, right? Because that's what you're trying to do. And the beauty of that you can experience in the future, what you're doing now, and how that works in a morphogenetic field structure, okay, is sometimes when I communicate things on different channels, and a lot of different channels that I monitor, I'll start writing long comments. And then all of a sudden you can come back to see how long that information is going to be run through the circuits. Then all of a sudden now you're experiencing what you put in there before that they're experiencing through them that you become aware of. So now you sort of see how you can raise the state of awareness to everybody that you now realize is aware of what you are, which means their consciousness is rising as a result of the energy that is represented by what you are and the way that you're communicating through a language that they can translate. So that's why I realized when I jumped in here the importance of learning the English language, because you can communicate in that language, in a language that they can understand and feel through your heart, their neurons, the love that's being communicated from your soul through your neurons, your heart and soul, that they're going to experience through the circuits, which is the grid that they can experience in them. Right? So what happens? You're raising the vibration. You're raising the capacity for more hearts to experience more love and heal more beings. And what happens? That raises the perception, because that means it's raising the vibration. And when you're running a higher vibration than something that is a parasite, then it's losing its perception of you, because you're no longer running the frequency bandwidth that they run at, because you're running a higher band, which means you're running a more powerful radio transmitter than they are. And that's why DNA wars are antenna wars, right? Frequency fences, all the technology that they know how to do to try and control what it is you experience, because they have the ability to do that. And they wring their hands because they have the ability to do that. Do as thou wilt, right? Satan. So that's the nature of their consciousness, right? The perception of power is corrupted. They're not love and service to others. So, and that's painful, because now you're experiencing the result of the things that they do, that we experience. And why I realized that I came in here, part of my job was to experience it in order to be able to communicate back to a council, if you will, because I have evidence of all the crimes, because I experienced it directly. It's one thing if somebody 1,000 years ago said, hey, this is what happened. Well, where's the evidence? Well, they can always fabricate that when you realize you're dealing with a pathological liar, because they can fabricate it. But if you experience it directly, then you've recorded it in your memory and you've experienced it directly. That's different than what we call indirect. It means hearsay. And when I was growing up, hearsay and a dime would get you a cup of coffee, when a cup of coffee was a dime, which means didn't have any value, because I didn't experience it, but I can believe you if I can trust you. But it means you experienced it, but it doesn't mean I experienced it directly. But when you're going to collect evidence and experience all the crimes and report it back because you experienced all the crimes, that's different, isn't it? Have a great day. I love you all.